Across the globe, major cities are silent. No families, no traffic, not a single pedestrian. The Nile has been the lifeblood of the lush Nile River Valley for millennia. But 10 weeks after people, this artery, vital to the cradle of life, is already on its deathbed.
It's hard to conceive that after a millennia of flowing through the most important cities of Egypt, just 10 weeks without people, the Nile would slow to a trickle.
Almost immediately, all that salt water is going to come in from the Mediterranean. It's going to completely transform that entire ecosystem.
The root of the problem lies 450 miles to the south. The Aswan Dam is a vestige of human engineering. Built in 1970, it tamed the mighty Nile and created the Lake Nasser reservoir. Now it stands guard over land that will never be farmed again.
For thousands of years, the Nile was totally unpredictable. Sometimes it would flood, and that would destroy farmland. Other times there would be droughts, and there wouldn't be enough water for irrigation.
The dam allowed floodwater to be collected, protecting the river valley below. The water could then be released year-round, allowing farmers to irrigate their crops.
After people, the dam still stands resolute, but it's no longer a sentinel. It's an executioner, bringing death to the Nile Valley.
There would be almost no water coming from the dam, and there would be no one there to adjust it when a dry spell hit.
At the same time, rain continues to come in, and that's going to fill it up over time.
Just 10 weeks after people, Lake Nasser is rising unchecked, straining against its walls. There's no one left to hold it back. And if it breaks free, it will swallow everything from the tombs of kings to the streets of modern Cairo. Deep in the Sahara Desert, the Lake Nasser reservoir has come alive. Hunters stalk their prey, and the deadliest one of all is silent, patient, ancient, far older than civilization itself.
Crocodiles were around 235 million years ago. They survived the extinction event that wiped out the dinosaurs. And then they thrived another 65 million years.
Vegetation will move in quickly all around the reservoir, and rapidly the area will become completely overgrown. So it's essentially going to turn into marshland. And what's going to move in there? Nile crocodiles.
Even though there are more crocs, there's in fact less food. Usually crocodiles often feed off of the livestock or the fish stock or just simple trash that we throw away. But without humans around, they're just gonna have to rely on natural prey.
Crocs would end up fighting over the fish and the birds. Then jackals and the hyenas would come to the water's edge and compete. I mean, you might think of Lake Nasser as this kind of crocodile paradise without humanity. But actually, it would be more like a gladiator pit.
Lake Nasser churns with ancient violence as Nile crocodiles wage their prehistoric wars, unaware that right beside them, the Aswan Dam is battling the ravages of time.
The dam is made of rock and clay, and the water is present, always trying to destroy it. So without regular maintenance, the water is going to win. People also maintain the dam by removing sediment from the gates and tunnels. So without people there, the sediment would build up, that would clog them, and that would lead to greater pressures on the dam.
The waters behind the Aswan Dam grow higher and higher, season after season, and the concrete groans under the weight. But upriver, there's an even bigger danger lurking. The Nile flows from south to north, and there's an even more massive dam in Ethiopia that could spell doom for the whole valley.
The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, also known as GERD, is the largest dam in Africa. It can hold back enough water to fill roughly 3 million Olympic-sized swimming pools.
The GERD is built on a very seismically active area of Eastern Africa. This is where two tectonic plates are being torn apart in what's called a rift. It's actually called the Great African Rift Valley running through there.
The more water that's stored in the reservoir, well, that's more weight pressing down on those fault lines, and that can absolutely trigger an earthquake.
Minor earthquakes shake this land almost every year, like tiny warnings beneath the sand and stone. A bigger jolt could break the Nile free, sending it surging toward the weakening Aswan Dam. And the question isn't if, it's when. 50 years after people, the East African rift rumbles beneath the Gerd Dam. It holds, but Mother Nature has other plans. The tremor shakes loose a rock slide that crashes into the reservoir below.
When there's a rock slide, you put a lot of solid material inside that reservoir. That water has to go somewhere.
It's like dropping a bunch of ice cubes into a very full drink. The water's gonna splash up and then splash over the sides. When that happens to a dam, it's called overtopping, and it's actually one of the leading causes of dam failure.
The GERD's designers build 2 emergency spillways to divert water around the dam in case of overtopping. But one of them has to be opened manually.
Dams simply aren't built to withstand this kind of event. Water overtopping the dam falls hundreds of feet, slams into the earth, basically hitting it like a jackhammer, undermining the foundations.
It will ultimately fail and unleash a wall of water that's 400 feet high, covering almost an area of 700 square miles.
The dam gives way, releasing mankind's last grip on the mighty Nile. Water tears through the valley. What's left of Sudan's capital, Khartoum, is swallowed whole.
A wave this big would be roughly the equivalent of a 600-mile-an-hour wind. That's faster and more powerful than any wind on Earth.
For 2 days, the flood rampages north, leaving a 450-mile scar carved through deserts and cities. At the end of its path sits the Aswan Dam, cracked and weary.
Even if the Aswan Dam was operating at its peak, it could not possibly handle that much water. After those decades of neglect and decay, the dam would just crumble instantaneously.
Now you've got the water from Lake Nasser added to the mix. And it's barreling toward a stretch of the Nile River Valley that's been transformed into a barren wasteland.
City of Luxor, gone. Cairo, also gone. It would just be utter devastation among the most iconic cities and landmarks in Egypt.
Pretty much every one of Egypt's major cities and archaeological sites are just lined up along that river. So the water would just plow through those like a freight train.
The Egyptian Museum would be destroyed, along with King Tut's tomb and the Valley of the Kings, Queen Nefertiti's tomb. Finished. All those beautiful wall paintings. The temples of Luxor, of Edfu, along with the Colossi of Memnon. Everything is gone. The list is endless. It is so tragic to consider this.
Remarkably, there are a few Egyptian icons that will survive. The Great Pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx, because they exist on a limestone plateau about 200 feet above the water. So even though the desert is inundated, these most famous Egyptian archaeological icons will end up surviving.
The waters recede, and nothing remains but destruction. In the silence that follows, the Nile River flows freely again. In Egypt, the Nile feeds a landscape reborn. What was once barren is now lush and teeming with life again.
You'd get hippos back in Egypt after being extinct, and lions roaming up and down the Nile Valley.
After a few hundred years without people, indigenous species have returned, not knowing that they're walking upon what was one of civilization's original cradles.
Human history has been tied up to water. All early human civilizations started on the banks of something. Tigris and Euphrates, the Nile, the Yellow River.
In many ways, the story of humanity has been about water, either protecting ourselves from it or learning to harness its power. But once we're gone, that story is just washed away.